In the name of protecting the United States and its way of life, the CIA has worked tirelessly to keep U.S. interests safe. But with that zeal came some questionable and downright terrifying projects that the government actually allowed to happen. These are the 5 terrifying CIA projects that actually happened. Number 1. What happens when Cold War paranoia mixes with mad scientists and a cat? You get Project Acoustic Kitty. The plan was to use the cat as a sort of secret agent that was able to eavesdrop and record Soviet diplomats at their embassies without being noticed. However, the CIA soon realized it was easier said than done. The 2 departments assigned to the task had to figure out how to implant a cat with a transmitter, a power source, a microphone, and an antenna, all without prohibiting a cat's natural movement or killing it. The research team eventually managed to find outside contractors to help build a 3/4 of an inch long transmitter that was embedded into the base of the cat's skull. The microphone was implanted into the ear canal, and the wire antenna went down the cat's spine and was woven into the cat's tail and hidden by fur. Years later, Victor Marchetti, an executive assistant to the director of the CIA, would go on to explain the process.
The cat that was used for the experiment had to be cut open and have a power pack placed inside its abdomen. Wires were run up to its ear, to its cochlea, wires to its brain to determine when it was hungry or sexually aroused, and wires to override these urges. The cat was then put on a test, sent across the street to eavesdrop on a conversation, being monitored by a van loaded with equipment. And as this poor little monstrosity waddled across the street, a taxi cab came down and ran it over. So it was $25 million down the drain. $25 million was a lot of money then.
One of the variables that the CIA didn't factor in was that due to cats' independent nature, you can't really depend on them to obey training. 5 years and over $20 million later, Project Acoustic Kitty was a bust. This, however, wasn't the only crazy project the CIA engaged in. Number 2. One of the weirdest projects the CIA ever conducted was Project Stargate. From 1972 to 1995, the CIA ran hundreds of experiments with so-called psychics and clairvoyants, with the help of the research and development company SRI International. At the height of the Cold War, there were reports that the Soviet Union was using psychics to spy on the United States. In response, the CIA decided to dedicate their resources to the paranormal. In 1974, a psychic working for the CIA drew sketches that were supposedly pictures of secret Soviet testing facilities. The sketch was surprisingly accurate, and it spurred the CIA to begin their psychic spy program in earnest. The main goal of the project was remote viewing. Remote viewing is the alleged psychic ability to view events or read documents from very long distances. There have been some psychics that have come forward claiming to have correctly predicted major events like finding hostages and finding downed military aircrafts. In 1995, 2 independent studies were commissioned to validate SRI's work. Despite their alleged successes, reports state that psychics were wrong nearly 80% of the time. That year, Project Stargate ended for good. Over 23 years, the CIA spent over $20 million on the project with questionable success. Number 3. We live in a world where terrorist attacks are a very real threat. But back in the 1960s, an attack on US soil was unheard of. So much so that the CIA thought faking a terrorist attack to justify a war with Cuba was a great idea. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation that would target innocent American civilians with bombings and hijackings while blaming Cuba. During the time of the proposal, Fidel Castro had just came into power, and the CIA was worried about the new communist regime. Operation Northwoods, along with other documents from the Kennedy era, were released by the John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Review Board in 1997. The documents outline an intricate plot on how to fake an attack on the Guantanamo Bay naval base. Several other steps for the plan included harassment and deceptive action to convince Cubans of imminent invasion, conducting funerals for fake victims, and fake attacks on U.S. military bases. Thankfully, when the plan was presented by Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Lyman Lemnitzer, President Kennedy rejected the proposal outright. Number 4. In the 1950s, the CIA wanted to control public perception and successfully infiltrated several media outlets. Operation Mockingbird was a secret campaign led by Frank Wisner to influence the media and release propaganda that favored the government. At its height, it had over 3,000 CIA agents and other collaborators working to control the free press all over the world. The CIA managed to have writers from the New York Times, Newsweek, Time magazine working for them, as well as writers from 25 other newspapers. One CIA agent is quoted as saying, "You could get a journalist cheaper than a good call girl for a couple of $100s a month." Operation Mockingbird was extremely active during the overthrow of Guatemalan President Jacobo Arbenz Guzman. The operation was exposed by writer David Wise in his 1964 book, Invisible Government. It not only exposed Operation Mockingbird, but several other CIA secret projects, including Operation Ajax, Operation PB Success, and the attempted overthrow of President Sukarno of Indonesia. There were several congressional hearings, and in 1976, newly appointed CIA Director George H.W. Bush made a new policy that stated that the CIA could not enter any paid contract or relationship with any accredited U.S. news outlet. Number 5. Possibly one of the most famous and infamous government projects, MK-Ultra was an illegal human experimentation program designed by the CIA to test various methods of mind control through the use of drugs. While some test subjects were volunteers, there were others in the United States and Canada that were unwitting guinea pigs and were drugged without their consent. Many were forced to endure various forms of torture, including physical and emotional abuse and sensory deprivation. Perhaps most disturbing of all, some subjects were even subjected to sexual abuse, which often included rape. MK-Ultra was officially sanctioned in 1953 and headed by chemist and spy master Sidney Gottlieb. The ultimate goal of the program was to find drugs that would act as a truth serum or wipe out a subject's memory so that the person could be reprogrammed like a robot. Researchers experimented with all types of drugs, including heroin, marijuana, sodium pentothal, alcohol, and LSD. In one experiment, researchers tested a subject by injecting a barbiturate in one arm and amphetamine in the other to see what would happen. The result? It left the subject a babbling mess. The range of MK-Ultra was massive. Experiments were undertaken at 80 institutions, including colleges, prisons, pharmaceutical companies, and hospitals. There are several well-known victims of MK-Ultra, including the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, mobster Whitey Bulger, and author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ken Kesey. At one point, the CIA was interested in the work of Canadian psychiatrist Donald Ewen Cameron. He thought that he could cure schizophrenia by erasing memories in an attempt to reprogram the psyche. Although he had no idea that his work had been funded by the CIA, he conducted horrible experiments with electrotherapy. Patients would go to him to treat minor problems like anxiety or postpartum depression, only to end up incontinent, unable to speak, and suffer amnesia. Dr. Cameron would administer shock treatments, then immediately put the patient into a drug-induced coma for days, weeks, and even months at a time. At the height of the Watergate scandal in 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK-Ultra files to be destroyed. However, over 20,000 documents were filed incorrectly as financial records and were discovered after a Freedom of Information Act request in 1977. That same year, The Senate Select Committee of Intelligence Investigation discovered 149 different projects dedicated to mind control with thousands of victims. Because of the destruction of so many documents, the true human toll will never be known. Hey guys, this is the Twin Files. So what do you think of the list? Crazy, right? There are so many different government projects that we just couldn't include it all in this one list. So we will plan on another video about what the government did and all of the crazy shenanigans they've been up to. Let us know what you think in the comments. Can you think of any other projects that we would like to do a list on? Make sure you put it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe our video. Thanks again for watching.